Sugar, you've been told to do your breast exam and to get a mammogram. But what if I told you that that's only part of the picture? Today, we are exposing the real risk factors that could save your life, things that your doctor might not even mention. Let's go beyond the breast exam. Hey, Sugar. So, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but today we are going beyond the breast exam and uncovering the hidden risk factors that no one talks about. And joining me in this conversation is my good friend, Dr. Vivian B., who is the Chief of Breast Surgical Oncology at New York Presbyterian Hospital in Brooklyn. Come on in here, Dr. B.
Hi, friend. How are you?
Sugar, you have to understand this. When I say this is a good friend of mine, this is a good friend of mine. We go way, way back to our days at the U. We were RAs together. I mean, so I'm trying to make sure I put that respect on her name, Dr. B of Dr. B. But you're gonna hear us, Viv and T, and because before there was a doctor, before there was any of this, we were just being two girls trying to, get these degrees and make our dreams come true. And glory be to God, look at you now, Viv. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Well, we got history, and I am just so thankful to be in this space with you. You know that passion drives both of us, and for me, it's been about taking care of women, women's health, and in particular, the breast health. And there's so much to talk about. So let's do it.
Let's do it. Now, before we jump all the way in, because clearly I know you, but my sugars don't know you. So take a second and tell the sugars who you are.
Absolutely. So, my name is Dr. Vivian Jolly B. I'm a breast surgical oncologist who is board certified in general surgery. I trained at the Medical University of South Carolina for my general surgery residency. I did medical school at Morehouse School of Medicine, and there's some history there as to why I went to Morehouse in Atlanta. I've got a lot of support, and really, it was the foundation of building up women's health, and in particular for women of color. And then I was blessed enough to match into a fellowship program for breast surgical oncology at their prestigious University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center. And now I am the director of the breast program at New York Presbyterian Brooklyn Methodist Hospital and on faculty at Weill Cornell Medicine. Look, my mission is to really push forward women's health and to really address the statistics that we often talk about in different ways. And that's showing up for our community, and really sort of talking about the myths and the facts and sort of all the things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yes, so now let's just jump right in because you said that one with myths. There are a lot of myths and misinformation floating around out here when it comes to breast cancer, and particularly breast cancer in black women and what's real and what's not. Again, we know we need to do our breast exam, but there's some other things that we believe are true that are actually not true. So I have a couple of myths that I've kind of wrote down, identified that I want us to kind of talk a little bit more about. Um, Myth number one: only older women are at risk for getting breast cancer.
That is one of the biggest myths. In fact, I am seeing more and more younger women who are diagnosed with breast cancer. And there's so much, my mind just went to seven different places. The truth is, yes, the longer that we have estrogen exposure, that's estrogen in our bodies produce estrogen starting, at a young age, the higher our risk of developing breast cancer. So two things can be true at the same time, that as you get older, you are going to have an increased risk of developing breast cancer because you've got more years of that estrogen exposure.
Hmm.
Um, but it cannot be true, or it is not true, that only older women get breast cancer. And in fact, we are seeing more and more women who are younger than 40 getting breast cancer. And those facts are, or the reasons are multifocal or multifactorial, as we would say. And we can kind of jump into some of those multifactorial reasons. But yes, estrogen exposure increases. Now, I should also just kind of talk about estrogen exposure because, in my mind, and as I talk often in the community, we have to break it down to modifiable and non-modifiable risk factors. And you'll hear me coming back to this term a few times. As it relates to estrogen, there are non-modifiable risk factors that we can't control. So those non-modifiable risk factors are the age in which you start your menstrual cycle. So the earlier you start your menstrual cycle, just think about that as the earliest you are going to be exposed to estrogen. And so your risk is increased. Non-modifiable risk factor would be when you go into menopause. So the earlier you go into menopause is actually protective. The longer you're having that menstrual cycle and that estrogen, that high estrogen exposure, the higher your risk of breast cancer. Other modifiable or non-modifiable risk factors as it relates to just breast cancer risk would be if you have children, that's actually protective. If you breastfeed, that's actually protective. And so these are some of the things that we sort of think about. But in fact, the takeaway is that all ages can get breast cancer. And in fact, more often now, we are seeing younger and younger women who are developing breast cancer. I'm talking as young as 25, 26. So, and there are other reasons and causes for that.
Okay, Viv, you just gave me some information that I did not know. In terms of the longer you are exposed to estrogen, so the younger you start your cycle and the longer it takes you to go into perimenopause, menopause actually increases your risk. And if you don't have children, and if
Mhm.
you like, I'm sitting here going, okay, 1, 2, carry the 1, 5, 6. Okay,
Yeah.
wait a minute, because my doctor just told me it's gonna be a while before, because, you knew I had PCOS. I have PCOS. And so that then changed my exposure and how I was exposed to estrogen. It's gonna be a while before I hit menopause. So now I'm sitting here going, "Oh, wow, haven't had children. Oh, wow. I might, need to look at a couple of more things than what I even knew, and I thought I was pretty much on top of the game. So I'm so glad you said that, because it just really highlights how even those of us who are very proactive, very
Mhm.
on top of it, talking with their doctor, there's some factors that even we don't know. So this is like critical right now.
It is. And I just want to be clear, there are many factors, and that's why I use the word
Yeah.
multi. So it's not just one thing. When I am looking
Right.
at someone who comes to me and says, "Hey, am I at high risk for breast cancer?" And I'm going to tell you why that's important in understanding that as I talk through this. There are many factors. So we have estrogen exposure. We know that alcohol and tobacco use actually increase the risk of breast cancer. And I have gone and talked about that. And and if someone's like, "Well, can I just have just a little bit?" Look, we were at University of Miami. We had a good time. Okay, I'm not taking those years back. I had a
Good
good time.
time.
I say it
I'm
on
so
purpose.
glad
It is
Facebook
what.
was not around, sugar, because there is
Look,
no proof. Yes.
we had a time and I stand on it, right? But
Right.
for me, I have chosen not to, consume alcohol. And I tell people, I'm not saying like stop, but just know that that also is increasing your risk, right?
Mhm.
Overweight and obese, because knowledge is power, right? And then when you know
Mhm.
better, you make decisions for yourself. We know that overweight and obesity actually increases the risk of breast cancer, and that has to do with estrogen in the fat cells and how it sort of adds that.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
but that all doesn't still tell the full story.
The
We
full
also
story.
know
Yeah.
that family history can be contributory, and you can develop breast cancer just solely based on your gene pool and your family history. And in that, we also know that we don't always know our family history because, mom
Big
and
mama
them,
might not have told us what was going on, and great grandmama, yeah.
all of that, right? And so when I say it's multifactorial, there are so many reasons. Look, you may say, well, the young women that you were seeing who were diagnosed with breast cancer, it can't be just estrogen. And I would say you're right. There are different flavors of breast cancer, right?
Mm.
There's invasive cancer. There's, in the ducts, it comes in the ducts, it comes in the lobules. Then we look at, the receptors, are they hormone based or not? And, for my younger women, oftentimes we find that they are diagnosed with sort of the more aggressive breast cancer type. And that has to do with, we don't always know, genetics, but maybe
Yeah,
chemical exposures and even the hormone
yeah.
positive, the chemical exposures. And then you're like, okay, well, what chemical exposure? We don't always know. Like
We
we
don't
have
always know.
chemicals that we
Yeah,
breathe, that we eat, that we consume, just as and I'm not going to say Americans, but just globally,
good.
there are
Right.
chemicals. It is this whole conglomerate of things that can contribute to someone developing breast cancer, really any cancer. And so, you pick and choose some things you can control. You couldn't
Yeah,
control your right. Like
yeah.
there's certain things that you couldn't control, there's certain things that you can control, and then you take that card, the hand that was dealt you, and you just go with
And
it.
do
And
the best that you can with what you got.
we can't
That's
live in fear, right? Like, and that's the other
mm,
thing. And I think when we say uh 1 in 8 women are diagnosed with breast cancer, it doesn't quite hit until you have one of those 1 in 8, but
1
it's
in
also
8. Mhm.
scary. Well, 1 in 8 are going to be diagnosed with breast cancer. Well, I'm here to say, as a breast cancer doctor who treats women every day, it's not just one size fits all. Breast cancer is very treatable in many ways, and so really early detection is the key.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, this is so good. And you started tap dancing on some of those hidden factors, hidden risk factors. And we're going to dive deeper into that here in a second. But there's two more myths that I want us to debunk. Myth number 2, breast cancer only happens when you feel a lump.
Ooh, this is a myth that just drives me crazy. It drives me nuts, and I'll tell you, because the goal of um I like to have great outcomes for my patients, right? I want to be able to, like, to be say, this is the breast cancer, this is what we got to do, and you will survive. In the United States, we have the innovation that a lot of countries don't have. I do a lot of work on the continent of Africa and West Africa and East Africa, and the access to mammograms or even sonograms of the breast are very limited. We have those tools that will allow us to catch breast cancer at its most earliest stage, when those cells are small and you can't feel it. And that is really the goal, is to not catch the breast cancer when you can feel it, because when you feel it, then we know that that is at a more advanced stage. More advanced stage means poorer outcomes, because the
Mm,
cancer
mhm,
do a
mhm.
little. So while we say clinical breast exams are important, and I will say that some of the societies that give recommendations on mammograms, when you should start and whether you should check your own breast, some of them say, oh, it's not worth it to check your breast. I disagree.
Mm.
I say, get to know your boobs, get to know your breast, because if something does develop, yes, we do want to be able to treat it and to catch it. But I also will say that mammograms, if you are at age and you can get your mammograms and we can catch the breast cancer cells at its most earliest stage, then I can more confidently say, you're going to be good. We just got to do some things, we going to remove it. You're going to have, a year of treatment through whether it's surgery or radiation or whatever, but you're going to be good. When it's more advanced, it's harder to say that you're going to do as well. You still do well, but do as well as when we catch it with a mammogram.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where the importance of the mammogram, comes in. So sugar, we're not saying to not do your breast exam or to not get a mammogram. This is a conversation to talk about the other things beyond that, because sometimes we think that that's all we need to look at.
Right.
It's just the breast exam and just the mammogram. But that's very good information, because a lot of times we have been conditioned to think breast cancer equals lump, when
Yes.
really it's you want to catch the breast cancer before there is a lump.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Um,
me jump in real quick and just
Yeah.
add this part that signs and symptoms, because yes, it is important to understand the signs and symptoms. And it's important, I'm going to say, the lump and the signs and symptoms are important for all of us to understand. I will say, especially in our younger women who may not be eligible to get a mammogram. You know,
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
said I've diagnosed 25, 26, 29,
Mhm.
30 recently, right? So understanding those signs and symptoms are important, and they are feeling a mass in your breast, feeling a mass underneath your armpit. Those things should be worked up. Now, when you have a mass in your breast, it doesn't always mean that it's breast cancer. That is true. But do
Mhm.
not assume. I want to take this moment and just, and just make sure that you advocate for yourself. If you feel something, say something. And if those people, doctors or nurses or whoever you're seeing are not listening, go get a second opinion. I would say it needs to be met with some form of imaging, whether it is a mammogram, depending on your age, or a sonogram, to really not just say, oh, that's fine, you're young, of course you would never develop breast cancer because you're too young for that. That's not true. It needs to be worked up. So that's one sign of symptom. The other sign of symptom would be nipple discharge. Nipple discharge that is bloody is typically there's something going on and we need to work it up. And when I say we, go to your primary care and then, ask to be referred to a breast specialist. Skin thickening. Skin thickening can be a sign of an advanced breast cancer. When your breast, or if your breast sort of thickened so much that it looks like an orange and you have like those little pits like an orange, that would be
Mhm.
an absolute reason to go get checked out. Um, Other things, if you find that your skin, you've got a rash, I mean, just any changes to your breasts, whether it's the skin, whether it's a palpable mass, the nipple, whether there's nipple discharge, whether the nipple is going in and it previously was not, like inverted nipple, a new finding is something that we need to, work up.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, that's I'd heard of the nipple discharge and the inverted nipple, but the thickening of the skin, that's a new one. That's definitely a new one for me. I
Yeah,
hadn't heard that one in terms of paying attention to just the skin and the texture,
absolutely.
of your but yeah, when you say about that lump and having it checked out, this, Viv, I had a breast reduction when we were in college, and
Hmm.
so it resulted in some scar tissue,
Yep.
and so I had a very good doctor who sent me early, even though I knew it was the scar tissue. And I was like, "Oh, it's all of 20 nothing. Oh, it's just the scar tissue from I had a breast exam." And she was like, "Okay, Ata, we're still sending you to
Hmm.
get that workup done because we want to at least get imaging." And what she told me was, "Let's get imaging of it now so that we see the shape of it, we see the density of it so that even if it changes, we're not just assuming that it's the scar tissue, that there could be something hiding in that scar tissue or around that scar tissue, that we need to have a baseline of what your breasts are as normal. And then, going from there. So I'm thankful that I had the doctor that would, yeah, that did that because I was just like, "Oh no, it's fine." And she was like, "No, ma'am. No
I love
sugar.
that.
Yeah,
She did
we're
right. I love that. I love
Mhm.
that. Absolutely. And that just brings a point that yes, if you had any surgery to your breast, whether it's a reduction, whether it is an augmentation, young women often will develop these masses that they feel. And again, it has to be looked at. We have to look at it at ultrasound, not feeling, look at it at ultrasound. And
Mhm.
it's also what we call a fibroadenoma, which is a benign breast tumor. And, sometimes we're taking those out. And so as you get older, you may have some scar tissue around there. And it's important to know what your normal is, especially after any surgical intervention, because scar tissue can form, but we need to know that that's actually scar tissue. So I applaud that physician and say that that's a good takeaway.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, this last myth is actually going to I'm kind of telling you ahead of time, it's a setup. because it's about to set you up to start going into those hidden risk factors that we were kind of tap dancing on earlier. Okay. Okay. This myth: no family history of breast cancer equals no risk of breast cancer.
Ooh, I
Yeah.
love that. I
That's
love
what
that.
I said. It's a setup. I'm telling you ahead of time. I that's a setup because you just mentioned that it's multifaceted. But a lot of us do think that, oh, that
Yes.
doesn't run in my family.
Yeah.
So I don't have to worry about that.
I'm gonna tell you a story. When I started my building the program in Brooklyn, um, I went into the community a lot, and I still do. But some of the things that I picked up on were eye-opening, right? That we generally, folks generally think no family history, I'm good. I'll get my mammogram when I get it. It is what it is. I'm not as at high risk because I have no family history. Well, this was an opportunity for me to educate, and I actually started Sister Give Me Your Hand, which is a program that really addressed providing appropriate education in our communities to people in the community, but also to educate any physician, clinician, applied health person who's touching women so that they understand risk factors and non-risk factors alike, and how we can really narrow that gap, that disparities gap, and just narrow that gap in general as it relates to breast cancer being the number one cancer that's diagnosed in women, and the second leading cancer in women that's related to mortality and death. So that's huge. The number
Mhm.
one cancer that's diagnosed in women. And so, if you look at that statistic and you really think about it, then you realize that not all of us have family history. And in fact, the truth is that breast cancer is often not associated with having a family history. Now, I
Mhm.
say earlier, it's important to know your family history if you can, because that can sometimes open up the opportunity to get genetic testing and look to see if there's a gene mutation that would contribute to your increased risk of developing breast cancer. But I'm also saying that those who have that risk, or that gene mutation that would increase the risk, are only 20% of those who are diagnosed with breast cancer. So the majority of breast cancers are not associated with a family history, and are also not associated with having a gene mutation. So what is it associated with? This is where you're trying to pull me on in, right?
Mhm.
Pull me.
Mhm. Mhm. This was the setup. Yeah.
This was a step. Now we talked about multifactorial, but I think sort of breaking those things down a little better is going to be important.
Yeah.
So, um, and this may not always be said. So, and I will caution and say, we're still data needs to support X, Y, and Z. But I truly, when I see younger women, and in particular younger women of color, who are diagnosed with breast cancer at a young age without family history, without a gene mutation, then it makes me sort of stop and say, what's going on?
What's going on? Yeah.
What's going on? This is where we dive into environment and clinical exposures. And um, we should also talk about, because this is what I talk about, and it can't be left out, the social determinants of health, which are the environment in which we live, in which we play, in which we work. Like, what do those environments look like? Right. Um, and within that, if you think about all of the places that you have been, where you grew up,
Mhm.
where you down, you want to think about the water supply. You want to think about, the paint, the lead. You
Like,
want to think about, you eat in what restaurants were in your community. I'm born and raised Washingtonian, Washington, D.C., right?
yeah.
So I tell you, we were at the corner store
Mhm.
every day,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Like in trash.
Mhm.
So
Processed meats.
uh,
Look, Memphis barbecue, pork, sausages. Yeah.
right. And then
Yeah.
you've got to think about what, over the years, the masses have to be fed, right? And so there's there are people who have looked into, and again, I'm not saying from a scientific standpoint, I'm out here as a breast surgeon saying this is actually, this
Yeah.
absolutely is the risk, but they're hormones that are given to animals. We know
The
that, right?
chickens and the cat, yes, yes, and when we eat the chicken that has been fed the hormone to make it bigger, we
Right.
are eating that hormone as well.
Correct. And
Yeah,
it's obviously been reported, not obviously, but it's been reported that younger and younger women are getting their menstrual cycle, and that's contributory to the estrogen exposures that are had at an
yeah,
earlier age. And so, when we're cracking this code, right, or building this puzzle, and I've been doing this for some years now, I'm looking
mhm,
at everything, right? I am looking at the air that we breathe and sort of what that what that, and I should say this because a patient asked me this week and I had to laugh, although it's not funny, but I had to laugh. She said, well, what about 5G? Did 5G cause my,
the phone, the technology,
and
but I
I'm gonna,
mean
I'm gonna say this, I said, you must know that I'm married to sort of conspiracy theorists, but it is there's so many factors, right? I am not saying 5G, but I am saying that we
Yeah,
have, as a society becomes more modern and there are things that happen, um, there may be steps. We don't
yeah,
fully understand what those missteps are, in order to really say we can completely protect. And that's like the honest truth. We just don't know.
yeah.
Another part is the chemicals that we put in our hair.
That I was waiting on you to circle that wagon because that was a conversation that you and I had offline about our decision. Well, tell the truth, shame the devil. My stylist made the decision for me, but I'm grateful that he did to reduce the chemicals in terms of the perms and the things. As to why, see, my natural girls right
Yeah,
now,
right.
to help reduce the exposure to
Yes,
chemicals because we grow up putting perms in our hair and all the things, and we're
yeah,
just thinking about how it makes us look, and we're not thinking about that's our head, that's our crown.
that's
And
right.
so that's still skin under there, though that's a lot of pores on
Yep,
our scalp, and it's just seeping right into,
right,
from our heads all the way down to our toes, and we're just thinking that it's just, the glue or the perm or the but
right.
it's actually having an impact,
Yeah.
to our physiology, not just our hair.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there have been studies, recent studies. I would always say, as a academic person, let me say that,
Mhm. Academia. Mhm.
academia, that sound studies help guide guidelines. Um,
Mhm.
and unfortunately, there are not enough sound studies to help drive guidelines. But
Exactly. Particularly for
but
Black women in the Black community.
because of Black women in the Black community and really having, clinical trials are really what
Yeah.
help, drive recommendations and really have produce, sound,
Right.
data. And so if we don't have that, it can also be true that we don't have to sort of say, oh well, it is what it is. We're just going to keep going as we go. We can say, no, we're
Mhm.
seeing that, within communities, we're increasing numbers of cancers, and not just breast, gynecological cancers, right?
Mhm.
Um, so
Mhm.
how can we change and do something different? Perms, hair color,
Mhm.
up even
Mhm.
that, but too much of anything,
Cosmetics, our deodorants, the
all,
lotions and all
all,
the scents and
all
all
of
of it.
it. I'm not saying cut everything out. Clearly, I get my hair done, like clearly I
Mhm.
like makeup from time to time,
Clear
but
clear.
too,
Yeah.
but too much of anything
Right,
in
is a bad thing.
bad thing. And I
Yeah.
will say, whether that's the food that you eat, the activities that you do, spread it out. And
Yeah.
that's and be strategic in trying to protect ourselves, from the chemicals that are, if it's not natural, then it's a chemical. And
Yeah.
that's just the truth. It's a chemical. Even the vegetables that we eat, we have to clean the pesticides and things off of our vegetables because, you're eating vegetables and then chemicals. So it's
Mhm.
thinking about these things, not becoming crazy about it. We have to live our life because I should also caution and say that stress increases the risk of cancer.
I was waiting on you to get to that one too. Come on.
So
Come
that's
on.
another one, right?
Yeah,
So
that's another
stress,
one.
that's another one. Stress can be so within itself multifactorial and many reasons. And we all go through stress, right? I have to step back and say to myself, girl, you doing too much. Because I like to do a lot. Like I really do. I be doing the most.
Mhm.
Um, but I have to remind myself that,
Yeah.
you got to breathe. You got to take a minute, take a beat to meditate, right? Close your eyes and for 10 seconds a day, just try to clear your mind and focus and center yourself. Like in this chaotic world, there's
Yeah.
so much that's going on. I had to protect myself. I'm not turning on the news at certain times. Like I'm not doing it. I need, I've been
That.
there and the stress is just not worth my health. And so when I say, when we say, because we're on the same page that, you
Mhm.
know, while recommendations may not be X, Y, and Z, right?
Right.
Or oh, it is what it is. Where we live is where we live. Where we work is where we work, right? Um, Two things can be true at the same time, but we can start taking more accountability for the things that we do to just kind of spread it all out, right? Too much
Mhm.
of it again is too much. Meditate. I believe in massage therapy if you can have it,
Yes, yes, Lord.
right?
Yes.
Acupuncture from time to time, just to
Yes.
re
Yes.
reset. There's a ton of
Recenter.
things. Yeah, there are
Mhm.
ton of things, and it looks different for everybody, right? Like maybe music soothes you, maybe painting soothes you, right? Like the arts are huge, even for my breast cancer patients. We have an art program, an art therapy program, so that because we know that it soothes, music soothes.
Mhm.
So those are the things that I would say, as we think about the risk factors, understanding that these sort of undercover risk factors do exist and we have the authority to really take control of our lives and of our families' lives and just, recenter.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I think that's critical
Mhm.
because we have normalized a lot of these things. Like you
Yeah.
said, we just kind of it is what it is. Okay, this is what we always ate, or this is
Right.
how Big Mama always made her, mac and cheese, or whatever it is, or we've normalized the stress and we're not realizing that we're keeping ourselves in a cortisol overload.
Yes.
And so continuing to have that cortisol spike in that way, not only like there's now conversation about how cortisol impacts our gut health and why we can't seem to get rid of the bellies and things like
Yep.
that. But we're not hearing exactly like you said, this is why this conversation is so important because the correlation between that cortisol and that breast cancer is not being put on big screens. They're not
Right.
talking about it in the middle of Times Square and that's not what's happening, but that is exactly what's
Right.
happened. That decision to maybe not exercise or whatever the lifestyle. We're not getting sleep because we got to rise and grind and we got to stay booked
Yeah.
and busy. And
Booked
you
and
are
busy.
put risk at
Yes.
risk,
Yes.
in doing that, and so those are the hidden risk factors that I really wanted to make sure that we elevated in this conversation because we could talk about the statistics. We can
Yes.
talk about, the 1 in 8 or the genetics is only 5% to 10%. And we can talk about the numbers, but when it comes down to it, and you're making a decision if you want to have that extra glass of wine,
Right.
or if you want to, go over here and not work out, or if you want to keep eating the Doritos and the Dr. Pepper, and I should probably raise my hand on that one because that's me calling myself out, right? You know,
Okay.
however you decide to wear your hair, how whatever cosmetics that you love to wear, and we're not saying to not do it, to not have the Doritos, to not, do the things, but we're saying to be intentional and understand that there is a correlation, even if they're not talking about it on
Yes.
the news, even if it's not, because a lot of things, it's hindsight. The things that we know now that they did not know in the 60s. Back in the day when we were growing up, we could ride around with no seatbelts. What's
Yep.
a car seat? Why do we need a booster seat? Throw us in the back of the pickup truck and roll down the street and it was completely fine. Like that was normal when we were growing up. Now, that's against the law. You
Right.
could get a ticket. And so it's like when we know better, we do better. So there's a lot of things that just right now, the science is just now starting to ask the question.
Yep.
It's just now starting to see the trends in the data. But when you have someone like Viv, that's here to say, hey, I've been doing this for over 20 years.
Right.
This is what I've studied. This is what I've seen. It would behoove us to pay attention to, all right, let me go and look a little closer at what's in my deodorant. Let me
Yeah.
go look a little closer at what's in my hair products.
Yes.
Maybe I want to, like I made the decision, which is, let me stop saying that. My stylist made the decision for me, sugar, that if we're going to do this color, that's the only chemical you get. We're
Right.
gonna take you back from the perm because we're not gonna put all of these chemicals
That's
on
right.
your hair, and we're going to spread it out and space it out so that we're not just chemical overload. If I'm going to wear my makeup well, let me look at maybe some vegan makeup
Mhm.
brand. So it's just being conscientious now that we have the information, not because it's now well known. Well, by then we could have developed, breast cancer all over the place, where now if we start making these decisions based on the information that we are getting from reputable sources such as yourself, we
Yes.
can start making these changes. So then we get the opportunity to, or my sugars get the opportunity to meet you here and not
Yes.
have to meet you in the
Absolutely.
doctor's office,
And let me say, absolutely. And I think prevention is so key with all of the things. And if I had to give a list, right, it is sleep. Get the at least the 8 hours of sleep. Think about ways in which you can decrease your stress and just be intentional on that. Water, drink plenty of water, because we know water feeds the soul. These are like easy things to do. And then I have patients who come and see me who do not have a breast cancer diagnosis but want to improve their breast health, and that's equally important. You may hear or may hear of people, or who or for yourself, that have breast pain. Believe it or not, breast pain is very common and is attributed to sort of all of those things that I just talked about: not drinking enough water, having stress, actually caffeine intake. And so, I am able to provide information on things to do to improve breast health, which also includes a set of vitamins that are that the breast actually enjoy and love, and it supports the breast health and decreasing breast pain. And so, there as a breast specialist, it is not, I'm not just focused on the breast cancer, nor should I be, right? Like, that is a part, yes, that I have trained in, and I know standard of care. I know how to provide or do all the things to provide my patients the best possible outcomes. But I'm also a breast specialist who truly believes that we have to be intentional and preventative in supporting our breast health. And so that's why I do what I do. That's why I love women's health, is because it can be this full spectrum in getting that word out that there are things that we can do to really to do better and to protect ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't have to be hard. I think that's the other thing, because whenever we start talking about lifestyle changes, or, I think sometimes we hit a mental block
Yes.
because we start trying to do all the things. Okay, I have to stop eating this, have to start doing this, have to take this right here, have to, and sugar, that's not what we're saying either. It doesn't have to be hard. Dr. Viv just told you, drink some more water,
Mhm.
get some sleep, go sit down somewhere,
Oh.
like exactly.
I
It
mean,
could
I'm
be
going
something.
days without drinking water, like, because I'm so doing all the things, and I'm like, wait a second, that makes absolutely no
No
sense.
sleep.
whatsoever, so let's be intentional. I have my water jug, I get it in the morning, I fill it up, and then at least I know that I have done that small part in my day, my health.
Absolutely. And I want you to pick up on something else that's, read between these lines, sugar. We are also saying that we've had to be intentional that we are practicing what we preach.
Yes.
You just heard Dr. B say she does community work. She sees patients. I mean, all the things. So she was ripping and running herself and had to sit herself down. So
Yep.
while she's out helping other people to care for their breast, she had to stop and think about her own tatas and say, wait a minute, I think
Yep.
I need a nap. And because we know each other, we both know, like she said earlier, the passion that drives us and how we will get it done. We have seen each other in college make the tough decisions, show
Yes.
up. Even if we went to the party, then we was still going back like, no, okay, I gotta go study. Or we was showing up to
Right.
class like present, we was still doing the thing. So we're not saying to be less driven, less ambitious. We're not saying that at all. What we're saying is put it into perspective and understand that as we are doing all the things, are you on that list? Are you making sure that you are doing what you need to do to stay healthy, happy, and whole? Are you making sure that you are doing what will help your breast to continue to thrive well into the future? Okay. So it's not just about staying booked and busy and doing other things and caring for your family members and all of that. All of that is great. All of that is important. But at the end of the day, are you okay?
Yeah.
That's what we want to make sure that you are okay and that you are here for well into, your golden years and breast cancer didn't take you take you from us way too soon.
Absolutely. Well said.
Absolutely. I
Well said.
mean, okay, so so we kind of have our marching order, sugar. Like we know that starting today, we are moving beyond the breast exam and we are going to start being very intentional about what we eat and what we drink and what we drink. Okay, y'all know the difference of what I'm saying. What we eat, what we drink, and what we drink. Okay. We're gonna make sure that we're getting our sleep. We're gonna make sure that we are sitting down somewhere and doing whatever needs to be done to get our stress under control. And sugar, this is where I go into my soapbox. Come and talk to me. I give a free 30-minute session just for you to be able to have a safe space to talk through all the things that you may not be able to talk through with your friends and your family. That's the benefit of having a coach. That's the benefit of having a therapist. You hear me say it all the time. The coach got a coach and a therapist. Okay. And that goes a long way in reducing that stress and those anxious and anxiety responses that you've normalized. Sugar, that's not normal. Come talk to me. Okay. So we have our marching orders of what we need to do. Drink your water and mind your business. Mind the business of your breasts. Okay.
Like
That is
that.
we have some tangibles. And I always like to give you tangibles, some right now things that you can start implementing very easy into your life that will make a huge difference. And then of course too, being intentional about what chemicals you are allowing in your space, be that your cleaning products that you use to clean your home or what you choose to put on your hair or in your face and your makeup and your cosmetics. Okay. So these are just some very easy things that go beyond the breast exam that can help you to continue to live a full life, a healthy life, and be happy and whole in the process. All right, Dr. B, is there anything else that we are missing or any closing thoughts you want to make sure that the sugars know and you can tell the sugars how to contact you if they have more questions or anything?
Well, all of that was so well said, as only you can do, Dr. Tyranny. So my closing is always call to action, and my call to action is, and I should mention some screening guidelines that are not always up to date when you go see your doctor. So I want to empower you so that you know what the updated screening guidelines are. So at the age of 25, actually, every woman at the age of 25 should have a risk assessment. There's actually a calculator that will calculate your risk of developing breast cancer. It's best done by a specialist, so your primary care can do it or a breast specialist. And that helps determine if you need to have screening of sorts, whether it's MRI or mammogram, before the age of 40. So that's one thing. For average risk women, that means you had the risk assessment, your average risk, you're going to start your mammogram at 40, and you're going to continue annually. Do not let someone tell you that you can skip a year. You cannot. You need to get a mammogram every year, and you should continue until you are like, I don't want to have any treatment if I develop breast cancer. That means if you have a grandma who is over the age of 74, 75, their doctor may say, hey, she doesn't need any more mammograms. That is not true. As long as she is willing to receive the treatment, should she be diagnosed with breast cancer, should continue to have screening. So those are my takeaways. But the call to action in itself is, now that you know the guidelines, reach out to 8 people in your community. 8 women, whether it's your sister, your cousin, your auntie, your niece, your grandmother, your colleague, your coworker, your sorority sister, whatever the case may be. Reach out to 8 women and check in on them. Ask them, how are you doing? Have you gotten your annual mammogram? When is it due? Create pods where you go and get your mammogram together. Remove that fear that is often associated with that. And follow me on Instagram. I'm Dr. B, MD. I have a post about, myths and ways that we can continue to protect our breast health. Also follow me, or go to my website, Dr. BMD. So DRBEAMD.com. I do have a program where I am educating on breast health, but also offering, for those who are diagnosed with breast cancer, second opinions on their treatment strategy. Knowledge is power, and I am so thankful to be in this space with you, Dr. Tierini. We go way back, and way, 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 way back, but your energy is powerful, and I appreciate you sharing this space with me.
Oh, absolutely. And I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule because we tried to do this last year. Sugar, we were working hard to try to get together last year, but our schedules just would not align. So I appreciate you for taking that time, making, moving some things around so that we can have this conversation and share it with the sugars. And it's just crazy how all these years later, we are still very much in alignment because we're saying the similar same thing. Because I was going to say that, but Sugar, please share this. Please share this conversation. Don't gatekeep. Don't gatekeep on the tatas. Please share this with your, like you said, your sisters, your friends, your colleagues, your cousins, because we want everyone to be healthy, happy, and whole. All right, Sugar. Well, Sugar, I thank you so much for joining us today. And be sure to stay tuned in for more updates and more information. Go follow Dr. B. Go if you have questions for her, please go and contact her, Sugar. All right, Sugar. And you know where I am if you need me. Ta ta, Sugar.